Ireland to be dragged in to any of this. And one of the main reasons we don't want Ireland to be dragged into this is because of our proud anti-imperialist tradition and our active role as peacekeepers in the world. And I think most people will understand by now that all the things that we are worried about are connected. So most people here have been active in the Palestine Solidarity movement. People are worried about the use of Shannon Airport by the US. We're worried about the use of Irish airspace in contributing to the genocide in Gaza. And all of these things are connected, and all of these things are part of the campaign to defend and protect Ireland's neutrality. So what we're hoping today is that we will be launching into our communities, into our workplaces, and building towards a protest in June. And there'll be material available, and I'll say more about that later. So I just want to tell you our lineup for today. We're really grateful to have a cross-party representation from the Oireachtas, and we have musicians, and we have an actor who's going to read for you as well, and I'll introduce them as we go along. But just to say that the Irish Neutrality League is a cross-party initiative and also includes many groups from civil society. So our first speaker this evening, or this afternoon, is Francis Black, Senator Francis Black, who has been one of the co-founding members of the Irish Neutrality League. So thank you, Francis.
Thanks a million, everyone, and it really is great to see so many people here, to see this room packed, actually, and people standing at the back today on such a beautiful day, particularly on this issue. So thank you for all being here and to come out and show your support for an issue that I know is very close to all of our hearts, and Ireland's long-standing and proud tradition of military neutrality. So I'm delighted to be here, and with the many activists and groups and advocates that Sarah will mention as the day goes on, and it will be thanks to all of the activists' incredible work that we protect both neutrality and the triple lock from the unacceptable erosion planned by this current government. Thank you also to the Irish Neutrality League for bringing us all together, and I'm really delighted to be part of this clear demonstration of cross-party support across the opposition in both houses of the Oireachtas in favour of Irish neutrality and against any move towards militarisation, violence and war. We already know the people of Ireland support our campaign by margins as high as 4 out of every 5 people in the South. And I hope that what today shows is the level of political and popular support for neutrality that is out there, and the real minority that for those who are proposing these changes actually represent. Their vision for the future of Ireland, where we align more closely with NATO, contribute to the European Army, participate in the global arms trade, and all with less oversight from the UN, the Cabinet or the Oireachtas, is not our vision. Today we reject the vision and instead choose a path of peace, where disputes are settled through discussion, mediation and diplomacy, and we can spare innocent civilians the world over from the scourge of war. We all have our own story as to why we support neutrality, and for me, neutrality represents a commitment to peace, independence and moral integrity. Neutrality ensures us that Ireland can uphold its sovereignty and make independent decisions without external pressures. This is essential for preserving Ireland's identity as a peaceful nation dedicated to diplomacy and human rights. And we all know from reading the news and from speaking to our friends and families at home and abroad the dire situation we are in. We know and feel that we're at a turning point in human history. As violence, war, death and destruction play out in so many parts of the world, it's easy to feel powerless and without hope. And that's why today is so important. Military neutrality and the triple lock especially is Ireland's guarantee to our people and to the world that international law matters, that might is not always right, and that peace can and will prevail. In uncertain times, as the very existence of international law is under threat, Ireland has a responsibility to push back. Under the Triple Lock, Ireland made a commitment to the international community that our defence forces would never be deployed in an illegal war. And that's what the Triple Lock guarantees. Given what we are seeing play out on our televisions, our phones, on the news, how can we decide that now is the time to roll back on that commitment? It's absolutely staggering to think about it. For many of us, neutrality is political but also deeply personal. And I know everyone here that's going to be speaking with me this afternoon will have their own connection to this issue, and sometimes it goes back decades. It speaks to the importance of working together, of a cross-party and consensus-based approach where we can leave our baggage at the door and offer real, organised and sustained opposition in the Oireachtas to the changes to the Triple Lock proposed by this government. We know the change is coming, and quickly. The Defence Amendment Bill to abolish the Triple Lock is on the government's legislative programme for this spring, and we know that the activists gathered here will work tirelessly in their communities and on the streets. And it's up to us as public representatives to do the same across the Dáil and the Seanad and all committees. We also have a responsibility as those of us in the public eye to debate the issue based on the facts. If the government really intend to pursue these changes despite the clear opposition of the Irish people, they need to be held accountable. The Triple Lock arose from a public commitment that successive governments made to the people in EU integration referendum campaigns for decades, that Ireland would never be drawn against our will into participation in an EU army. When will we hear a minister admit that their plan is to break this promise? I have also now heard the Taoiseach on several occasions continue to make the misleading claim that Putin holds a veto at the Security Council over the deployment of the Irish Army. He states this inaccuracy despite the clear powers under Irish law and the UN Charter that are given to the General Assembly, where no country holds a veto to authorise military action where the Security Council fails to act using the Uniting for Peace resolution. Indeed, the government leaned heavily on Irish neutrality during the recent successful campaign for election to the Security Council. And what damage could this regressive move do to Ireland's reputation internationally, especially when our strong voice on Palestine is needed now more than ever? To look at what's happening in Gaza is to be faced with the worst acts imaginable. A horrific genocide committed with the vocal support and or silent complicity of Western governments. When we talk about abandoning neutrality, of Ireland becoming a major paying customer in the global arms trade, where will those weapons come from? That's the question we must ask today. The same American, British and European weaponry now being used to wreak such devastation on the Palestinian people, tested for their effectiveness amidst active ethnic cleansing, and will be marketed, sold and shipped here to Ireland. It's outrageous. We have a long history at the UN as a leading advocate for international disarmament, particularly nuclear weapons, cluster bombs, and specifically the use of highly explosive weapons in heavily populated areas. So any move towards an Ireland which aligns closer with NATO or European arms manufacturers and rejects our proud and successful record on disarmament at a time when the global arms trade reaches new heights must be rejected out of hand, and is the reason why we're all here today. So I'm really glad to be here today, to have this chance to speak today on the importance of opportunity to preserve a cornerstone of our foreign policy, one that we rightly take huge pride in. And it's up to us here and now to continue a rich tradition rooted in our history as a colonised island that rejects militarism and imperialism and instead chooses peace.
Thanks, Francis. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sarah O'Rourke, and I am with the Irish Anti-War Movement, one of the civil society groups in the Irish Neutrality League. So we're going to have a couple of more speakers before we have a reading and some music. And our next speaker is Galway Independent TD, Catherine Connolly, who most of you will know has been from the North.
Sarah agus an iarna bheog a chur an ócáid seo le céile. Tá sé thar a táhachtach go bhfuilmid an seo ag seasamh gúlan le gúlan chun teachtarach láidir a thabhairt don rialtas, teachtarach do bháin. Níl muid chun fáil ré le ar policy neodreachta, níl muid le fáil ré leis an glas tríomhach. It's really important that we're here today, and it's lovely to see the room full. And I have the clock running, and I will stop under time, as I give out all the time TDs don't. We're here to give one message to the government, and the message is neutrality matters to us. We will not give it away, and we will not give away the triple lock. No matter what lies you tell us, no matter what narrative you spin, we know what's going on. And I'm here today to spell that out as best I can. Yesterday, this country celebrated Europe Day. Yesterday, we looked at the Schuman Declaration from just 75 years ago. And amongst other things, Schuman said, peace cannot be safeguarded without the making of creative efforts proportionate to the damages which threaten it. And our peace is certainly threatened by the warmongering military-industrial complex that most countries in Europe, America and elsewhere are embracing. And we will not be part of that, no matter if we're called free riders, no matter if we're called childish or stupid. I take all those insults if we maintain our triple lock and our neutrality. Told that the triple lock is no longer fit for purpose. As I said, we're being told we're childish. And of course the question begs the question, what is it not fit for? What is the triple lock not fit for? Perhaps some of the TDs can tell us that are promoting it, and the MEPs who tells us that we need to get rid of it because it's not fit. MEP Kelleher, for example, has told us that. So has Barry Andrews told us that. And then we have the Minister for Defence just this week telling us, I cannot overemphasise, word in the reply to questions that myself and other TDs tabled in relation to the triple lock. It cannot be overemphasised that the removal of the triple lock will not affect our neutrality. And then they wonder why there's disinformation, and they wonder why there's no trust in governments. Nothing to do, so you can all be rest assured, removing the triple lock has nothing to do with our neutrality. And then another interesting reply to a question this week, we are told that the triple lock and the change to it will be debated on later this year and approved. Debated on and approved. It's on the record for you now, so democracy is gone. They will be publishing the heads of the bill. It will go for pre-legislative scrutiny. We will get a chance to scrutinise, but it will be approved. So there you are, in the words of the reply. So, let's go back as to what is to be achieved by getting rid of the triple lock, because there's such a flexibility at the moment, one wonders why they need to get rid of it. We have planes going through Shannon, bringing weapons of mass destruction to a number of countries, including Palestine. We don't inspect them, we take the reassurance of America that there's nothing on those planes. Can you imagine that reassurance from them? And then we have dual-use goods, and we have increased that 7-fold in less than a year. Our dual-use exports out of this country. We trade with Israel through the European bloc. We have sent out tender documents to get drones that will have target capability. We have increased our spending on defence enormously. We have failed to pass the Occupied Territories Bill, although we're being reassured it will come up in October. And notice the programme for government tells us we will progress the Occupied Territories Bill, but we will reform the triple lock. Huge change in use, difference in language. The other insulting thing about talking about the triple lock and that it's an impediment to us taking our part in the world is the triple lock refers to both organs of the UN. It refers to the General Assembly as well as the Security Council. So we doubly insult the UN organisations at a time when we need them more than ever. And yes, all of us admit that the UN is not perfect. The Taoiseach himself told us in 2013, when he told us the triple lock was an integral part of our neutrality, the core of our neutrality, he said that the UN was also very important and a part of our overall approach that we signed up to in 1955. I don't know what he's changed, except he tells us the world has changed. For me, the world changed many times in my lifetime. It certainly changed with the illegal war on Iraq, when the US and UK and the Allies went in on the basis of lies, and absolute lies, to tell us there were weapons of mass destruction, and went in without a UN mandate. I can pick that. I can pick the Vietnam War. I can pick the bombing of Cambodia. I can pick Palestine, where genocide is happening in our name as we collude with our silence. And that's what the government has done. And they have repeatedly told us how good they are in terms of compared with other countries. I say it's not enough. If we now this week hear them say it's a war crime to use starvation, then it's time to do something about that, or otherwise words we use language obscenely. We talk about an ecosystem when we talk about an arms fair that was held in October 2 years ago. We turn language on its head so that we can pave the way for the industrial military complex. We hold arms, we export, and we have an easy open door for the so-called Irish Defence Security Association. Members of that have articles on a regular basis in the national paper without declaring their background ever, and they get away with that with our media. I'm here today to say I stand proudly with you. I take courage from you on the ground to say we will use our voice as an independent republic, a sovereign state with a history that should make us strong in calling out colonialism, calling out truth to power, no matter whether that's Russia or America. And America, when it invaded all of the countries in Central America, one way or another, and when it talks about taking over Greenland and the other countries. But no, in our speeches from the various ministers, we condemn unreservedly Russia. Unreservedly, but we urge Israel to show restraint. Israel, that's before the highest court in the world for genocide and on trial for genocide, and we still do nothing. Thank you. You're the media mob.
Thanks, Catherine. And I think, as Catherine said so well, we can't let neutrality go without a fight. And I think that's why we're here today. And just to say, the attack on neutrality hasn't come out of nowhere. This is something that's been happening slowly. There's been a slow erosion over quite a number of years. Obviously, it's escalating now with the attack on lock. But just to say, there have been groups like PAN and the Peace and Neutrality Alliance who've been working for years trying to highlight these issues. And there are groups all over the country who are starting to mobilise and do small things in their community to get the word out there around neutrality. There's a Triple Lock campaign that has a neutrality roadshow that's going around the country, I think in a camper van, to community centres to talk about this. And this initiative that we are involved in here today is a cross-party initiative, and so very important because of the reach of so many of the people in the Oireachtas. They reach big numbers, and I think that's what we're going to have to do in the same way we did with Repeal and Together for Yes. We need to reach everybody to mobilise people to save neutrality. So our next speaker, we're very happy to have her here with us. Very important, I think, that she's here with us today. And it's Mary Lou MacDonald, leader of Sinn Féin.
Time freshen fear sauce that the van saw Lucia and you unsaw Malia or her clear friends. We're here together with a shared goal to defend Ireland's cherished neutrality, to say with one voice that we will not stand by while our neutrality is undermined and attacked by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, nor by the militarisation agenda at the heart of the European Union. I want to say this: if they believe that they can push ahead with their plans unchallenged, then we have news for them, because we will fight like hell to stop them. And our message to Micheál Martin and to Simon Harris and indeed to Ursula von der Leyen is very clear: hands off Ireland's neutrality. Neutrality, you see, goes to the very heart of who we are as a people, goes to the heart of what it means to be Irish. It's a shared value that binds us together, that looks to the world not to seek war, but peace, not aggression, but friendship. A mutual idea of our tribe that spurns that destructive dogma that might is right, and reaches instead for the better angels of our humanity, for a better world in which the threat of war, of imperialism and of slaughter is overcome. Ireland's neutrality is hardwired into our history, into the very fabric of our nation. It's profoundly connected to, chimes so powerfully with our own struggle against colonisation, occupation, oppression, our struggle to regain our freedom and our nationhood. The vision of Ireland as a neutral country was first espoused by the father of Irish republicanism and leader of the United Irishmen, Theobald Wolfe Tone. And again, as a defining thread of our nationhood in the Easter Rising, when James Connolly's Irish Citizens' Army hung out that iconic banner, which in one sentence cut to the core of the matter: we serve neither king nor Kaiser, but Ireland. And not alone was this an expression of national loyalty, but a powerful rejection of the militarisation of the mighty, and of the fascination with empire that dragged the world into the abyss of world war and the horror of the trenches, where working class men and boys were sent off to fight and die in rich men's wars. The Irish people, we learned the lessons of our history well, and our neutrality has stood us in good stead. It's the very bedrock upon which Ireland has built a powerful reputation as a voice for peace, for freedom, for justice in the world, as an honourable defender of human rights and democracy, as a respected champion of conflict resolution through dialogue. It has allowed members of our defence Defence Forces to wear the blue beret of UN peacekeeping missions with pride and to stand in protection of the vulnerable throughout the world. We will not give up on that. Through their attack on our neutrality, the first front of which is their promise, their vow, as Catherine has said, to dismantle the triple lock, Micheál Martin and Simon Harris seek to surrender the power of Ireland's honourable diplomatic strength in international affairs. And the Taoiseach has made very clear in recent times that he will push ahead with this shameful plan. He says that this is necessary because the world has profoundly changed. Well, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Israel's horrific genocide in Gaza, the tensions that we see between India and Pakistan are all testament to an instability in the world, perhaps a changed world. But I believe that's exactly why preserving and strengthening Irish neutrality now has never been more important. Never has it been more crucial for neutral states to stand up and be counted, to confront the instinct of the powerful, to arm up, to flex their military muscles and to go to war. So it is disgraceful that government would choose to use the volatility of the world as an alibi to tear down our neutrality, to dismantle the triple lock so that Irish soldiers can be deployed in EU-led and NATO-led military misadventures that are not in Ireland's interest, without a UN mandate, and that can bring catastrophic consequences to the globe. We should never ever send out a message to the world that the United Nations no longer matters, especially at a time when the European Union now blatantly intensifies its militarisation agenda. It openly engages now in an arms race, spending billions on weapons of war. It's a European agenda that the government is happy to go along with. I ask, where is their moral courage? I believe, as representatives of the Irish people, they should stand against this hawkish militarisation. They should be defending our neutrality. And I remain convinced that the military neutrals, the non-aligned countries now, have a crucial role as interlocutors for peace, for freedom, and for stability. And that is why we must campaign to see the rights, the position, the recognition of military neutrals and non-aligned recognised in the EU treaties, not trampled upon by those same institutions. And as Francis has said so eloquently, this lurch to militarism gathers pace at the very time that the people of Gaza are being slaughtered in their tens of thousands. A genocide happening before the eyes of the world. The blockade, the starvation, Netanyahu's plan to take all of Gaza by force, this horrific massacre of men, of women, of children, all the fruits of militarisation, the fruit of that deplorable might is right philosophy that now comes to tear apart Ireland's neutrality. The lack of an international response to the cries of Palestinian children, the impunity afforded to Israel to carry out its barbarism, all of this, make no mistake, is the fruits and the product of a militarised world, funded, supported, aided, abetted by the United States, by Britain, and by the European Union. And we are here to say that the Irish people will never accept our country being part of these shameful events, these shameful alliances that bring such suffering, such misery, and such destruction to humanity. The Taoiseach has described Israel's actions as war crime. He's right. The Cornish that says he's sickened by Israel's actions. He should be. But condemnation is not enough. Now is the time for action. And I suggest that the Irish government take the energy that they're dedicating to dismantling the triple lock and our neutrality and instead direct that positively, direct that constructively. Sanction genocidal Israel. Israeli impunity. It is time to stop the genocide, and it's time to end the occupation. Friends, this is a time for knowing who we are. And in this battle to save Irish neutrality, none of us can be found wanting. We need to campaign relentlessly. On the streets, in our communities, on the airwaves, in the Dáil and the Shannon, in council chambers across the land. We have to ask people to join us. We have to facilitate people to get involved, to play their part. We need to put feet on the streets, and we need to raise our voices loudly in protest. I want to finish, if I may, with the words of this man. His name is William Rooney. He was a Gaeilgeoir, a Tír Gráthóir. He was born into tenement poverty here in Dublin. He died in May 1901. He was a formidable character, and we unveiled a plaque to him, by the way, today in the North Strand. And these were his words when he addressed the Celtic Literary Society on the 3rd of January 1900. I want you to listen to them. He describes the Irish ideal, and he says, "An Irish state self-supporting, self-funding, her flag respected in every port, her shores and her sympathy for the oppressed of every race and every colour, her voice in the Council of the Nations, her language, her laws and her achievements, the pride of all her people. Such is a national idea, and to Tone do we owe the fact that any of its most militant features still recommend themselves to the vast bulk of our countrymen and women." And so it was then, and so it is now. So if Micheál Martin or Simon Harris really believe that they have this right, if they really are convinced by their own argument, if they want to get rid of our position as a neutral, I say to them, go to the people, put the question, and you'll get your answer.
To our other speakers, we're going to have a reading and we're going to have a song. And just to say, as important as the politicians are, because they have a platform and a reach that most of us do not have, and they represent a huge portion of the population. Another group that I think is really important in any movement is the artists, musicians and writers. And I think Ireland, we have a pretty good share of great art and literature and music in this country, and I think artists and musicians can be the heart and soul of the movement. So I think it's really a great privilege to have the people that we have here today with us. So our next person I'm going to call up, I can't see where he is. There he is. It doesn't need an introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. So we're happy to have the actor Liam Cunningham here with us today. Liam's work, but also to say Liam has been you've been an amazing voice online equality and also standing up for Palestine and the people of Gaza. So thank you very much. And Liam is going to read, and then after Liam we will have a song from Ona Canavan, who also probably needs no introduction to this group.
How are you all doing? This is a speech by Sharpen. It's from 1933, and the unlikely voice of an American military commander. It's a speech by Major General Smedley Butler, 1933. War is just a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of people. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. I believe in adequate defence of the coastline and nothing else. If a nation comes over here to fight, then we'll fight. The trouble with America is that when the dollar only earns 6% over here, then it gets restless and goes overseas to get 100%. Then the flag follows the dollar and the soldiers follow the flag. I wouldn't go to war again, as I have done, to protect some lousy investment of the bankers. There are only two things we should fight for. One is the defence of our homes, and the other is the Bill of Rights. War, for any other reason, is simply a racket. There isn't a trick in the racketeering bag that the military gang is blind to. It has its finger men to point out enemies. It has its muscle men to destroy enemies. Its brain men to plan war preparations. And a big boss, super-nationalistic capitalism. It may seem odd for me, a military man, to adopt such a comparison. Truthfulness compels me to. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of this country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general, and during that period I spent most of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I suspected I was part of a racket at the time. Now I am sure of it. Like all the members of military profession, I never had a thought of my own until I left the service. My mental faculties remained in suspended animation while I obeyed the orders of higher-ups. This is typical with everyone in the military service. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the national city bank boys to collect the revenues in. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefits of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped purify Nicaragua for the international banking house of Brown Brothers in 1909 to 1912. Where have I heard that name before? I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. In China, I helped to see to it that Standard Oil went on its way unmolested. During those years, I had, as the boys in the background would say, a swell racket. Looking back on it, I feel that I could have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was to operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents.
Because you've been concentrating on tradition, na neodach the time to teach you taimse staples in line and coding of fish agus in line and the fish. Agus I'm going to pass over on tradition shin or on social James Connolly. So I'm going to sing the song of James Connolly, who understood very well that the same reasons that people were being sent to war in the First World War were the same reasons that people were living in poverty on the streets in Dublin, and it's the same thing that we have now. The same reason that the Irish government will strip search mothers against genocide, but not search planes. It's the same. covering up all the property while people are left on the streets. It's the link between imperialism, capitalism, and that's what's keeping all of us down. So when we're talking about Palestine, when we're saying no one is free until Palestine is free, it's not just a nice sounding slogan. It actually, our own liberation and our own possibility of living a decent life is actually wrapped up in their struggle as well. So, and James Conley understood that very well. So here we go. Where, oh, where is our James Connolly? Where, oh, where is our gallant man? He's gone to organize the Union, to break the chains of slavery. Where, oh, where is the citizen army? Where, oh, where are our fighting men? They've gone to join the great rebellion, to smash the bonds of slavery. Who'll be there for to lead the van? Who'll be there for to lead the van? Oh, but our own James Connolly, the hero of the workers' own. They took him down to Kilmainham. They took him down onto the jail, and there they shot him of a bright May morning, laid him out in the quick-lined grave. Who mourns now for our James Connolly? Who mourns now for our gallant man? Oh, lay me down in yon green garden, make my bearers Union men. They took him down to the green garden, Union men, each and every side, and they swore they'd forge one mighty union, and fill that gallant man with pride. Come on.
Thanks very much to Owen, and obviously, just in case people might not know, we took the name Irish Neutrality League from James Connolly's Irish Neutrality League in 1914. Thanks to Liam also for his very powerful So our next speaker, we've three more speakers, and our next speaker is Senator Alice Mary Higgins, who has also been with us from the beginning as one of the co-founders of the Neutrality League. So welcome, Alice Mary.
see it and know it right around the country, and I know that's happening with the Neutrality Roadshow as well, is that the Irish people value our neutrality. And not only that, the Irish people understand neutrality in a way that the government don't seem to do. Because a few years ago, we had, a few years ago we were told by, I think 2013, by Micheál Martin, that the triple lock was the core of neutrality. But then just a few years later, we were told neutrality is a policy that can change at any time. That didn't go down well. People didn't respond to it. And what we've seen now in the recent relentless tiny sound bites, because sadly this has been pushed in sound bites rather than in any depth of discussion, of debate on what Ireland's role in the world is, what our diplomatic power and meaning is, what loving the world means for Ireland. That's what we're missing. What we're getting is sound bites, and we're being told again and again a single sound bite, which is removing the triple lock doesn't compromise neutrality. And now that only works if you've said, okay, the public are really attached to neutrality, so we'll give them the word neutrality. And we will try to hollow out and chip away at what that means. Till now it means simply, well, we probably won't be full members of NATO. We'll hang around the edges of conferences, as we've seen our Taoiseach doing. But we won't be full members of a military alliance, and that's it. That's what neutrality is, and that covers us. But neutrality is something different, and something special, and something much more powerful. Neutrality, which the Irish people understand. Neutrality is that idea that you are just and fair, and that you work for peace, and that you treat with equality other countries and other nations in a politics of principle rather than a narrow politics of interest alone. And what neutrality means, that you stay true to what we have in our Constitution. The Constitution, which says that Ireland is committed to the principle of the pacific settlement of international disputes by international arbitration. That is, that peace through dialogue on international disputes. It's something that aligns directly with the UN Charter and its very first line, which is the commitment to work together to protect future generations from the scourge of war. That mandate from our Constitution, the mandate from the UN Charter, that idea that says, yes, peace, and here's another really important thing, that acknowledges peace is work. Peace isn't a stepping away, or it isn't free riding, or any of these appallingly insulting language that we've seen used. Working for peace, active neutrality, is work. It is the deep work of trying to build dialogue, to build connection, to build peace. And Ireland has done that extraordinarily well and extraordinarily powerfully for a very small country. Ireland's record on peace, neutrality and disarmament is something we should be proud of. And I think it's appalling, this idea of, even those who quote the language of sovereignty, they also talk about feeling a bit embarrassed in the room about Ireland not really having, the military, get involvedness. Ireland has something special. We were the first country to sign at another time in history when we saw an arms race for some of the most brutal weapons possible, nuclear weapons. And Ireland was the first country to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and to push and say, we make ourselves safer by disarming, not by arming. That is how we make all of us safer. Ireland, and I was very proud to be there, Ireland was the country in Croke Park where the global ban on cluster munitions was negotiated. A ban on some of the most horrific weapons possible. And right now, Our government don't seem that proud of it, because when, very sadly, some of our colleagues in Europe, including Lithuania, are leaving that convention and talking about engaging in these weapons again, and the government are staying silent, rather than playing that active role in fighting for peace and disarmament. Ireland has played that role when we sent, it was an Irish person who was sent to support the successful peace process in Colombia. It is Ireland who has been able to step up and make a bridge between Europe and many European countries and the rest of the world, who have a dark, hard record of history with those European countries. And Ireland has been that bridge and connection, an incredible asset to the European Union in that regard, but more importantly, a really important contribution to building those connections in the world. We have something, and we also understand, this is another part, that actually, where you spend the money if you want peace, it's in community centres.
Yeah.
And it is in dialogue between communities, and it's long, and it's in initiatives from the ground, and it is getting women to the table. That's how you build peace. We know that. Again, I say this because that contribution, what we bring, is needed right now. Ireland has had huge credibility, it's been said by others, because of our record on peace and neutrality and disarmament. That's why we were elected to the Security Council. It's why we were asked to chair the Council. It's why we were asked to chair the negotiations on the Global Sustainable Development Goals, which, remember them, are that alternative vision of what a world that was sustainable and fair and good could look like, and a vision we cannot afford to lose on a planetary level, because it is about all of our survival. Ireland was asked to chair those negotiations. And now we're at a moment where we're basically looking to try to throw that away, or at least jeopardize it. And it's not clear for what. For a very vague and amorphous suggestion that the time is now, and maybe things have changed. Things have changed, they're dangerous. That's why we need that work of peace. And I'm going to go into just 2 or 3 of the things the work of peace means right now. But before we do, and I can't give it all because it would be too long, but I want to just, inspired a little bit by Liam Cunningham, mention a couple of the pieces of the work of war that has been happening over a period of time, very briefly. The racketeering that has been happening. Yeah. And one of those key moments was, as Catherine mentioned, when there was an arms fair in Ireland a few years ago, before the illegal invasion by the terrible illegal invasion by Russia of Ukraine. Earlier to that, there was a few moments when Ireland started, and particularly, I have to say, the government parties started this tip-tip. Another moment was when, again, an arms fair from the country that led disarmament. That was extraordinary. And then we had the other, and by the way, Irish Navy being sent to arms fairs internationally at a time when Ireland's great pride, our incredible pride, one of the reasons our troops are respected internationally is because of our unbroken record that it is with the UN, or, and this is really important, the other humanitarian work that Ireland has done. Because to be absolutely crystal clear, the Triple Lock does not prevent defence of our own borders. The Triple Lock does not prevent humanitarian action by Ireland. And of course the Triple Lock can be activated by the General Assembly as well as the Security Council. There are already many spaces for anything good we might want to do in the world within the Triple Lock. And another moment in the slip was, I think it was Paul Keogh at the time, as Minister, when we moved from rescuing lives in the Mediterranean, 8,000 in 1 year, saved by our Navy, and it was a moment. We are moving from a primarily humanitarian to a primarily security function. And this was the language at that time. And drip, drip, drip since then, we have seen a slide towards this new militarization. And it does us a disservice, and it does our armed forces and our Navy a huge disservice. And crucially, it time, but I want to just say 2 or 3 things about right this moment what Ireland can be. Yes, it is a moment when the UN is under threat. That is the time, and the UN knows that. That's why there was a Summit of the Future last year. There is right now an active process of review and reform across UN institutions, and Ireland should be right in the centre of that. Right in the centre of that. I believe, I think it is the Netherlands who are representing Europe in that process. Where is Ireland in that process of UN reform? That's what we should be leading. There is an attack on international law, that crucial idea of we have laws that apply to everyone, that are universal. We are seeing their universalism eroded and challenged, and that is where a neutral country, I think it was one line at one point, I think Micheál Martin said, well, we're not neutral on the International Criminal Court. No, the point is you are neutral, and that's why it applies to everybody. So that crucial moment of protecting international law, where Ireland can give leadership on the Occupied Territories Bill, Ireland can give leadership by insisting with our colleagues in Europe that it must be universally respected and defended. And that is a moment also. If the world needs Ireland to step up and contribute now, and be a driver for peace at a time when there is a new, very dangerous politics of might is right, of a return to colonialism, of a return to imperialism, of a turn back towards the big power and client state logics that damage so much of history. Europe of anywhere has the most to gain from Ireland. Because Europe, sorry, I know we'll come to my time. Europe is a place which is a peace project. It came out of peace. I think it's the very Schuman was mentioned. Literally was said, this is to move us away from the manufacture of armaments towards coal and steel. This was literally in the first founding moment. So that is it. Europe is a peace project that is losing its way and that is in huge danger, for example, of sacrificing social cohesion funding. Social cohesion funding that brings us together for a focus on militarization that makes hostile borders for Europe and also drives us apart at our core. Ireland can remind Europe of that. Ireland can be the bridge, because Europe doesn't just have the learning from World War II. They also have centuries of internal fighting, centuries of colonialism. There is Europe of all places should be and needs to be an anchor for peace now and not go back to a very bloody and hard history which it had before that. And Ireland can be the reminder, the soul and the conscience for Europe, and it can be a leader and a bridge within the world. And that is all possible, and it is here, and we can do it, and we shouldn't let arrogance take it away from us. And this one line I thought was deleted and improved. We heard about starvation as a war crime. It was followed by comments, what will you do? We'll have to be pragmatic. And we've also been told, deleted and improved. Do we really trust this government or a future government not to make a similarly quick decision in relation to inappropriate military activity in the future? Or do we want to give them and us the protection of knowing anything they do must abide by UN law, not just in terms of approval, because every mission from the UN is monitored, it is carefully planned, it has humanitarian dimensions, it operates under Geneva laws, it is much stricter than anything else. Don't we want those safety nets? Don't we want to protect a weak future government from making the wrong decision in a pragmatic way at the wrong time? Yes, we do. That's why we're fighting for peace. That's why we're pushing to keep our neutrality and to keep the triple lock. Thank you all very much, and we're going to keep going.
Thanks so much, Alice Mary. So we have 2 more speakers, then I'll take a few questions and just encourage people to stay to hear our very special musical guest, Lisa O'Neill, who finished this afternoon. So our next speaker is People for Profit TD Paul Murphy, who has been very loud on this issue inside and outside the
had airstrikes back and forth between two nuclear powers. India, which is ruled by a far-right chauvinist Modi, and Pakistan. The war over Ukraine looks set to continue. Trump got his deal to rob the minerals from the Ukrainian people, and now for the moment the war looks set to continue. And the genocide in Gaza, if it's possible, and it seems to be possible, is worsening. You know, we've got almost a year and a half of a horrendous genocide, and it is worsening. The pace of deaths is quickening, and the rhetoric is still as clear as ever in saying what they're going to do. I mean, the finance minister for Israel, Smotrich, the other day said Israel or Gaza will be entirely destroyed. And the mechanism for that destruction that they have chosen is the weapon of famine. With huge amounts of trucks full of food trying to get into Gaza and just stopped. And within Gaza, 290,000 children who are now at risk of starvation. There's 70,000 children who have been hospitalised because they're severely malnourished. And there's 3,500 children facing imminent death due to starvation. And all of that is financed, is funded, is enabled, is given, is armed by Western imperialism. And we shouldn't just think that Western imperialism is the US. The US, we know, is the number one funder, the number one giver of arms. But after that comes Germany, comes Italy, comes Britain. And the EU has supported from the first day, has given the green light from the first day to this genocide. And just in the last week or so, sent firefighting aircraft to Israel, not to protect the people of Gaza, who are having the bombs paid for by European taxpayers' money rained down on them, but no, to protect Israeli people faced with wildfires. So we have a world that is increasingly divided and consolidated into rival imperialist camps, highly militarized. The US-led camp on the one side and the Chinese-led camp on the other. And what is now a trade war can become a military war. And that doesn't just happen like that. It's something that builds up over time with a series of proxy wars, like we're seeing in Ukraine, where neither Putin, of course, with his brutal invasion of Ukraine, but neither the US and NATO, none of them, care about the interests of the Ukrainian people. The Western side are only interested in using the Ukrainian people to weaken Russia for their own interests. And now we have a new arms race taking place. I mean, it's sickening. In Europe, what the arms race is called Rearm Europe. You'd have the impression that Europe was perhaps disarmed over the past number of years with such a title of this project. But no. Over the past 10 years, military expenditure in Europe and globally has gone up every single year. We're at global military expenditure now of close to 3 trillion euros. Since 2011 in the European Union, military expenditure is up 30%. In the last year, it's up 10%. But that isn't enough. Now we've got Rearm Europe. It's going to speed up even further, and as being referred to, the fiscal rules are going to be suspended. Not so that we can build homes, not so that we can address the health crises, not so we can address the cost of living crisis, but so we can buy even more weapons and make the arms manufacturers, the dealers of death and destruction, even richer than they already are. And what getting rid of the triple lock is about, when they say this is happening in a certain world context, the world has changed, they're telling the truth, but they're also giving away their own agenda. They see this world being divided, and they know what side they're on. Ordinary people in Ireland know we're not in favour of either of these blocks. We're opposed to imperialism, to oppression, consistently. But they have a side. They're on the side of the US, of NATO. That's who they align with, people like Micheál Martin and Simon Harris. It's why they have permitted over 3 million troops to go through Shannon Airport to participate in invasions and occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. It's why, and they really don't like it being said like this, but it's the truth, it's why they are complicit in the genocide in Gaza. Okay? They really hate being criticised about their position in Gaza. During the week, every time around the world, people say how good Ireland is about Palestine. Okay, they're not physically arming and funding the genocide themselves like most of the Western countries. But they're complicit. They have to, because of public opinion, pretend to be doing something. But then they want to get along with US-led NATO. They want to get along with these people at European meetings and so on. And that means being complicit in the genocide. It's why they said one thing during the elections about the Occupied Territories Bill, and then afterwards are dragging their feet and trying to water it down. It's why, through the central bank in Ireland, they are facilitating the sale of Israeli war bonds all across the European Union. And it's why they are turning a blind eye to thousands of tons of weapons, F-35 parts, detonators, fuses, guns, being transported illegally, without permission, over Irish airspace to be used in the genocide of the Palestinian people, and then go on TV and claim, sure, we don't know anything about this, when they've been given the evidence again and again. And so they want to get rid of neutrality altogether. And so they say, they've been quoted, no, this is nothing to do with neutrality. But we should just go back. When they thought they had their best opportunity to get rid of neutrality after Putin's invasion of Ukraine, they thought this is the moment. And they said it openly then. They said it openly. Neil Martin said it's a policy issue that can change at any time. All the other government members said the same sort of thing. But then public opinion remained steadfast. All the learned opinion pieces in the world saying we needed to grow up and get rid of neutrality, and the sham consultative forum, none of them did the job of shifting public opinion. So exactly as Alice Mary said, they decided, okay, fine, you can have your word, and we just empty it of all content entirely. And that's a rhetorical battle that has been going on, but it is also creating facts on the ground, bit by bit, more and more openly aligning Ireland with US imperialism and with Western imperialism. Some of those things, again, it's not spoken about, but Ireland has attended more than 20 meetings at NATO headquarters over the past couple of years, as part of the Ukraine Contact Defence Group. Ireland has sent so-called non-lethal military aid to Ukraine. Ireland is talking, the government is talking, they're promising to triple military expenditure. And that is not about addressing the poor terms and conditions of our people in our defence forces. It's not about Ireland being prepared to defend itself against an attack. That's not what it's about. It does not make sense in those terms. The only way it makes sense is that it is about preparing to be further aligned with NATO and to join NATO later down the line, which would require a tenfold increase in military expenditure. These people, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, are the modern day equivalents of the Redmondites. They want Irish people Redmond wanted Irish people to go and fight for the interests of British imperialism despite their colonisation of this country. That's their tradition. It's not just Fine Gael's tradition, it's now also Fianna Fáil's tradition. And our tradition, as reflected in our name, is a very, very different one. It's the tradition of James Connolly and the idea that we serve neither king nor Kaiser. And what does that mean for us today? I think it means neither Washington, nor Moscow, nor Beijing, nor Brussels. Consistent opposition to all the imperialist blocs. The last thing I'll say is that I think this is a very powerful gathering. But we shouldn't fool ourselves. We will not stop their attempt to dismantle neutrality by fine speeches in the Dáil and the Shannon, which I'm sure we will collectively try to give. We will not stop attempt to dismantle neutrality by reasoned argument, by the logic that we are able to display here. They have their majority in the Dáil. It's why they did the deal with Lowry. They knew they were going to ram through a series of unpopular measures, and they locked in their majority. And they're going to try to use that majority to ram this through, regardless of what public opinion says and regardless of how eloquent we are in the opposition. The only thing that will stop them is people power mobilisation. It is the only thing that will stop them. And so, this is a great start. The roadshow across the country is the next very, very important step. But then this protest, which you need to get your leaflets on the way out, don't just take one leaflet, take hundreds of leaflets to distribute. We need to build this protest and put thousands, if possible, tens of thousands of people on the streets on the 14th of June. And we have to mobilise all those people who have been politicised and horrified and mobilised by what's happening in Palestine. To mobilise those people who historically protested against the war in Iraq in defence and opposition to war. We also need to mobilise those people who want to see money spent on school places, who want to see money spent on hospitals, who want to see money spent on houses rather than spending money on weapons and on war. For us, the people before profit, the struggle against war, against militarism and for peace is an integral part of the struggle to put forward and advocate and build support for a socialist alternative to this capitalist system which is dragging us into barbarism. This barbarism is marked by ecological catastrophe, by the rise of the far right, and by militarism and genocide and war. And part of that is that the left needs to take ownership and lead the struggle of the defence of neutrality and against war. You cannot allow the likes of Trump and his acolytes in this country to present themselves as being in favour of peace when the war comes out of the system that they defend and the most horrific parts of it. So just to finish with a quote from Connolly, who's rightly been referred to a lot today. We have held and do hold that war is a relic of barbarism, only possible because we are governed by a ruling class with barbaric ideas. We have held and do hold that the working class of all countries cannot hope to escape the horrors of war until in all countries that barbaric ruling class is thrown from power. Thanks a lot.
To us at the moment, and it is a real pleasure to join together across parties and independents and to collaborate as the Irish Neutrality League. It's a pleasure, and I'm very proud to do it. My team is very proud of my party to be a part of remobilising this. And what I'd like to do with my time is really take apart some of those arguments that we are hearing from the government, to dismantle them the same way that they want to dismantle our precious triple lock. And part of that is really dealing with some of the hypothesising and some of the what-ifs, and I'm going to go into one of them in particular in a bit of detail. But essentially, I mean, for me, the reason it is so important that this room is full is because this is taking hold. I mean, as we've heard, we know that the majority of the Irish Irish people still protect and treasure our neutrality. But there is so much obfuscation, so much confusion, so much misinformation being put out at the moment that people are starting to question the triple lock. They are starting to believe that our sovereignty is under threat. And that is what I want to really help with today, is to arm everybody in this room with the information that you need to back down some of this nonsense rhetoric that we're getting. So the four things that I want to look at is, first of all, that the government actually support Irish neutrality. Secondly, that they're not dismantling or removing it, they're just simply altering the triple lock. Thirdly, that the very existence of the Security Council veto is a threat to our national sovereignty. And finally, as we've heard already, that times have changed. So firstly, I want to dismantle that the Irish government actually support neutrality. Because I'm only 6 months in this job and I'm already sick of hearing the Taoiseach respond to my questions by telling me how much he treasures and protects the Irish neutrality that we all hold so dear. Because their actions say otherwise. And I was asked by Claire Byrne to back that up. Well, if you say, Sinead, that they don't support neutrality, what is the evidence to say that? Well, I'll give you very clear evidence, and we've heard many of it today. Firstly, their proposal to dismantle the triple lock by removing the UN mandate and quadrupling the cap of people who can be sent, or troops that can be sent without any oversight whatsoever, by allowing Irish airspace to transport weapons, by supporting an EU leader who is openly pursuing greater militarisation, by engaging in EU battle groups, by having offices in NATO paid for by the taxpayer, by dual-use goods, and by trade with Israel. These are all examples that undermine any claim by this government that they actually support neutrality. And together, of course, these aren't just isolated actions. Together, they pose a real serious threat to our neutrality. So I simply don't buy it. And I have to say at the moment, I'm sure some of you also look forward to 6:30 on a Friday hearing Callan's kicks, because I think he has the Taoiseach down pat at the moment. If you haven't heard him recently, he's moved on from talking about Harris as the TikTok Taoiseach to being this military-obsessed, saviour-complex Taoiseach with his pew, 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 pew. If you haven't listened to him, really, he's just brilliant at the moment. And of course, finally, there are senior members of Fine Gael, including Neil Richmond, who openly state that they don't support Irish neutrality. And Neil says that he still respects the line of the party, and that of course he'll follow that. But it's common knowledge that he represents a growing wing within this party. The second thing I want to dismantle is that they're not removing it or dismantling it, that they are simply altering the triple lock. And let it be said, by the way, that Fine Gael did not have in their manifesto that they were going to do this. Fianna Fáil did say that they were going to do it, but they said that they were going to alter the triple lock. But it is simply untrue. If they do what they are proposing to do, so let's just be clear on what they are proposing to do. They're essentially going to remove the triple lock and the requirement for a UN mandate. That's what they're proposing. And instead they are suggesting that by adhering to the principles of the UN Charter, that it fulfills the same obligation. Now, many of you here in this room will be familiar with that UN Charter. It is, I think, 96 articles. It is so vast as to say that if you were to put it to any test, it becomes completely meaningless. And the other thing, as we've heard already, is that when they say they're altering it, and we see so clearly that they are not, they're actually moving it from being a triple lock into a single lock, because they are this majority in the Dáil. It's not just the government and the Dáil. The government then forces through the Dáil anything that it wants. So there is no oversight. Already, any Minister for Defence can send across 11 troops, anything below 12, without any oversight. So the cap, which is kind of overlooked in this discussion at the moment, would mean that 48 troops, or 50 troops would be able to be sent without any oversight, without any Dáil debate, without any critical thinking of it whatsoever. And the one that I want to give most time to is that the very existence of the Security Council is a threat to our sovereignty. Because we hear again and again about this chilling effect that the veto has, about how the fact that Russia, China, and now the US, and anybody on the Security Council can use their veto to potentially block our troops being sent abroad. No Irish mission has been vetoed by the UN Security Council since the introduction of the triple lock. Let's just be clear on that. Missions have received UN mandates, including Sophia in 2017, and have had their mandates renewed, including the UNDOF mission in the Golan Heights. We pulled out of that mission, not because we didn't have a UN mandate, didn't have enough troops because they had been deployed in EU battle groups, which do not have the accountability to either the EU Parliament or the European Court of Human Rights. And I want to also speak to the fact that it doesn't matter anyway, because the Security Council is not the only place from which we can receive the UN mandate. We can also go to the General Assembly. Just yesterday, I saw Francesca Albanese, a hero to me and to many people in this room. And I just want to read what she said. The tiny bodies of children in Gaza, hollowed out by induced starvation, are testimony of the worst humanity is capable of. It is time to impose an arms embargo and sanctions on Israel and urgently deploy a protection presence made of friendly soldiers, not from states who have supported the genocide. It is time for the UN General Assembly to act under Uniting for Peace resolution. The UN GA Resolution 377 is the Uniting for Peace resolution, and it states that in any cases where the Security Council, because of a lack of unanimity amongst its 5 permanent members, fails to act as required to maintain international and security and peace, the General Assembly should consider the matter immediately and may issue appropriate recommendations to UN members for collective measures, and it goes on. And the point there is that if we keep on talking about these what-ifs, so what if Russia vetoes? Then this is what happens. It goes to the General Assembly. We test the mettle of the United Nations, the precious organisation which has upheld global order for decades in this world. And that is what we have to do. Sorry, I got carried away myself here. And the other sides of the what-ifs. If UN mandates can't be gotten for missions, should we pull out of missions? If peacekeeping is not sanctioned by the UN, should we not participate? The other hypothetical we're getting, well, if Russia vetoed a peacekeeping mission to Ukraine, should we not send it? No, because then it's war. It's not peacekeeping. That's the whole point. And it goes back to this idea that peace isn't easy. Multilateralism is not easy. It takes work and it takes movement and constant action. And finally, the final thing that I want to dismantle is that times have changed, or more specifically, that times have become so scary that we have no longer any choice but to arm up and enter into war. And things like our subsea cables, our infrastructure, potential direct attacks on us are thrown in to this argument. But the reality is that deploying troops overseas on non-peacekeeping missions actually means we have fewer defence forces available to us, and the triple lock anyway threatens none of this. We are a small European nation, but our foreign policy was built on global solidarity and justice, not clientelism or laser focus on the interests of a regional bloc. It is our type of foreign politics which has made this world safer over the decades, and in the shadow of conflict, it is the type of politics that will make tomorrow a safer, better world. We have the longest unbroken UN peacekeeping record in the world. We have never deployed peacekeepers overseas without the UN mandate. And neutrality is not passive. It is not denial. It is not cowardice. It is a smart strategy for a small island nation which cannot ever compete with the military superpowers that dominate our world. And now, decades on from our first deployment of neutrality during a time of war, we have decades of reputational strength to add to it, and champions of neutrality who have used it to achieve great things. Constance Markovich, De Valera, Frank Aiken, Michael D. Higgins, the wonderful panel we've heard from today, and the many, many activists in this room. And we have to continue that work and protect our neutrality and protect our triple lock. Thank you.
Questions and really short comments, because obviously there's a lot of people in this room who have a lot to say about neutrality, people who've been campaigning for many years, and unfortunately we were a bit late starting, so we are running over time. So if you have a comment, very short, we'd be happy to take some questions. before I take the questions, just a little bit of housekeeping. We need to raise money. I hate this part of proceedings, but we need to pay for leaflets and posters. We have to pay for this room, and if we are to launch a very serious campaign, we are going to need funds. So we have a GoFundMe page. We're going to pass around. We're very modern now. We're going to pass around a QR code, so you can scan the QR code and make a donation on the GoFundMe page. If you're still doing cash, we can take a cash donation over at the table just inside the door, and there's also the QR code hanging up at the door and various spots around the room. So, and actually there's a sum-up machine at the back. So we've multiple ways to take donations. We also have sign-up sheets inside the door for people to leave their email addresses to stay in touch with our activities. But very specifically, we are having a protest on the 14th of June, and we need people to get involved in that. And I think it was Alice Mary who said, we need to make visible on the streets the opposition to war and militarism and the huge public sentiment in this country for preserving our neutrality. We need to make that visible on the streets, which is why we need a sizable mobilisation on the 14th of June. So if you are interested in directly getting involved in activism around that, we're having a coordinating meeting on Zoom next Wednesday at 6:30. So I'm going to specifically pass this around for anybody who wants to get involved. Leave your email address and I can send you the Zoom link afterwards. So if there's a Karen has a roving mic. So the lady at the back there with Sophia.
My name is Katrina. There was a lot of talk of James Connolly today, but I don't see the Labour Party. They may be here. But what I wanted to remind people here, there was a very clever article in the Irish Times a few weeks ago about how the United States had agreed to sell to Ireland some weapons which were called Javelin lightweight units, and they are costing this country 40.44 million, which is nearly, I think in my sums, nearly $500 million. And they are being produced by Lockheed in America and another American military company. I don't think Ireland should proceed with this purchase, and I think this would be an easy enough thing for people in this room to start with, to write to the Taoiseach to cancel this order from America. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Medina Shane. I think this is an excellent meeting. I've agreed emphatically with almost everything everybody has said, except Paul Murphy, whom I greatly respect and like. But I don't agree about China. I don't think China is leading an alternative imperial force. I think I'll declare my position about China. I've been engaging very intensively with China for the last few years, and I'm a visiting professor at Peking University. I think China is doing everything possible to be a force for peace, and the drums of war are beating more fiercely against China than any other country in the world. And I don't think that it's the right thing. There are alternative narratives about the Uyghurs and Tibet and everything like that. A lot of this, I mean, the US is against Islamic terrorism everywhere in the world except in China when it wants to defend their human rights.
I think
soundbite. That's the one to use.
Thank you. I'll just take a couple more contributions and then we'll come back to, we'll get the speakers to respond at the end to all the questions, if that's okay. So I have yourself there, and then you.
Ursula von der Leyen visited the Dáil in 2022. She was allowed to address the Dáil. Why did TDs not protest against her? Her objective was to sell arms to Micheál Martin and Simon Harris and to push them quicker into joining NATO. I want to live in peace, not hell.
Okay, thank you for that.
A year ago, the Irish Times ran a headline which said that Europe is preparing for war, but Ireland has its head buried in the sand. I'm not making this up. This was their actual headline. And the reason why I mention this is that we should be aware that as well as Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were trying to undermine our neutrality, we're going to get a lot of flack from the liberal media. The liberal media who constantly love the EU and trying to pretend that the EU is not built by big powers like Germany, France, and in the past, Britain. And the last point I just want to make really is this, that we will have to be consistent in saying that neutrality means independence from all empires. I have to agree here with Paul about China, but let's all work together for once, and let's actually establish the fact we want to keep this country neutral and independent of all imperialism.
Certainly all the hands have gone up. Unfortunately, I can't take all the hands. I'll take a couple more and then I'll let the speakers come back with the answers.
To Roach, Irish Neutrality League and Irish Anti-War Movement, and just a brief note on the Labour Party, because I'm the person who sent out the invitations to all the opposition politicians to sign the Irish Neutrality League statement and to get involved. A very positive response from the leader of the Labour Party, but they haven't signed the statement yet, and that's why, that's all I can say. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't signed our founding statement, just go onto the website neutrality.ie and find it. We will be in continued discussion with the Labour Party to try and encourage them to get involved, absolutely. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll take two more and then I'll come back to the speakers because then we have some great music to hear before we finish. So just here's someone there by the pillar.
Me?
Yep.
Oh, thanks. Alright, I'm sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained, but I felt compelled that I have to add this, that I lived in Xinjiang, I lived where the Uyghurs live, and just because this was brought up, we have to get out of black and white thinking, right? What is happening to the Uyghur Muslims in China is a genocide. I saw it happen. I don't know what's happening now, this was maybe 5 years ago I lived there. They did endure really horrific conditions and genocidal conditions. That does not mean that Chinese imperialism is as bad as US imperialism. That does not mean that China is as great a threat as Western imperialism. We have to, this is like a very Western thing that I've seen living in other parts of the world. We have to get out of black and white thinking. It cannot be good or evil this way or that way. Like, we need to just get out of this dichotomous thinking, and two things can be true at once, right? That's all.
You're next, and then I have to close. I'm sorry, the speakers. I know there's loads of hands going up now, but we do have to finish, and we have to hear from the speakers. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm Grace Stiles. I'm an artist and an activist. I'm thinking about kind of art and activism as I'm listening to the contributions today. Just to reflect that, like, the tools of war, like a lot of the quotations we listened to were from a long time ago, and the tools of war have advanced rapidly in that time. Like the changes in technology, the changes in strategy, and the changes in how far people are willing to go have changed exponentially. But the tools of peaceful resistance have not, you know. So we still have the same, like since maybe the 1960s, there hasn't been any massive new tactics in terms of our protests, our public meetings, our petitions, our letters, our statements are all the exact same, including even our non-violent direct action, our sitting down. That all was established in the 1960s. There's been no new activism technology. And I think when we, who are behind all sorts of different causes and different kind of things, when we only do actions that we know are, that have no impact and will make no change, and when it comes to the ability of other people to survive and thrive and to existential threats like war, we just have to be really careful that we're not doing stuff that will just make us feel good, because then we're feeling good. Because then we're feeling good as a response to other people's suffering, and we're actually exploiting people for us to feel better. And I know that's not anything anyone is doing, willingly, but I think what I'd call for is just more imagination and to really think about our actions and bring more creativity into them and more courage into them. And look at framing as well. So the idea of framing, like, don't think of an elephant, you think of an elephant, that kind of piece. And even if you look at, like, defending Ireland's neutrality, there is an implicit own goal in that, because we're not currently neutral. So to defend something that isn't actually there is an own goal, because essentially, while we still have planes going through Shannon, there is no neutrality. So we're upholding our neutrality in this, and it actually doesn't exist at all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really sorry that I can't take all the hands, but what all the hands, somebody going up now suggests to me is there's loads of room for discussion, and maybe we need to start thinking about having meetings in communities and, colleges. I know colleges are ending soon, and workplaces and things like that. So maybe that's something for people to think about. Can you put on a little discussion on neutrality wherever you are? And I think the Triple Lock campaign, Neutrality Roadshow, which has been mentioned a few times, that's a really good model. They're going around the country and they're going to community centres and small places and having discussions with communities about neutrality, and maybe that's something we could do. But and I take Grace's point about needing to be more imaginative. We need more people to get involved. So if you have ideas and if you want to get involved, then make sure you've left us your email address. So I'll just take some very brief answers to some of the things that came up from any of our speakers who would like to say anything, and then that will be the end of this part of the day. Yeah. So Alice, Mary.
So maybe just to take up is actually what Grace was saying is actually very similar to what is in the Schuman Declaration that we heard about earlier, which was that we need to reach the work of peace requires our greatest creativity. And that is actually, so it may be disappointing, but that idea of having to bring new creativity is one that was there, for example, at the founding moment on the European Union. And that is where I would just say, I know for, the pointing of the fingers at blocks and big powers, I think sometimes we fall into the trap of big power politics, where it's about big powers and it's about, and we come under the idea of, which wings should you be under and who's worst. And what is really important in terms of the European Union, and I'm saying that as somebody, I'm really passionate about the European Union. I took part in the Future of Europe process with 800 citizens from right across Europe. What those citizens want is a Europe that's good. Again, what the institutions, many of them heard, was a Europe that's strong. But when the citizens spoke about being proud of Europe, they talked about employment, environment, standards and for equality. That work. And that work, which is hard won out of what I've acknowledged, is Europe's very bloody history of centuries of fighting within Europe and centuries of Europe bringing war to the rest of the world. But the European Union is a peace project, and the fact that others are seeking to undermine it, the fact that it's taking them step by step to try to move away from social cohesion and others, is exactly why, if we care about Europe, and I do, we should be bringing a reminder of that creativity of peace and of that original mandate, and bringing that work to the European Union and challenging it. And yes, when von der Leyen came, many of us in the Dáil, and even I was weirdly there, because I'm a senator in the Dáil, we challenged her. And absolutely, the parties who supported her re-election should really be answering questions in that context. Absolutely. about Ireland's neutrality, what we bring to the world, what we bring to peace and disarmament. And we begin not with the big powers, but with us as a small, important country that can do something for peace in the world and can and must do it. And that's where we begin. And I would just finish. I have spoken to the Labour Party this week. I know that some of they're very clear on their support for the triple lock, and I believe that they are getting involved in some of the further events. Thank you. And again, I'm an independent senator, but I've been speaking widely. Thank you. And I believe many other independents will also get involved.
Okay, so just any last comments really quickly from our speakers before we finish?
Just super briefly to partly respond to Helena. I mean, the main thing I'd say is what unites us here as the Irish Neutrality League and everyone in this audience is that we have agreement on defending our neutrality and defending the triple lock. And you know, there is space within the INL for Helena's view, for my view, for the woman who spoke, theirs view, and a range of other views, as long as we're united on that. And then we need to have space to actually tease out some of these questions without them becoming the INL position, but to debate different approaches to it. For what it's worth, I mean, I agree with Helena that China is in the kind of sights of Western imperialism. They're gearing up for conflict, ultimately war with China. That's where things are heading. That's why, for example, it's the underlying logic of Trump, pushing for some sort of peace deal in Ukraine was part of a pivot to Asia to really focus in terms of China. And I'm talking about proxy wars. I think the next possible major proxy war that we could face will be over Taiwan. So, and I agree, our main duty here in the West is to oppose that drive to war in the West, oppose the demonization of China and so on. But I think you can say all of those things and still maintain an independent position that says we don't have to choose camps here and we can be consistently opposed to all the different imperialist blocs. But obviously it's a much bigger discussion to go into that debate about how to characterise it and so on.
I think that if you want to get this message out, I think you also have to change language. And that there are people that all this intellectual, all this kind of stuff, it won't reach. You need to do it like they did it. We need to go back into our history and into what happened to us as a people, and we need to look at the women in 1918 who actually organised to go against the conscription of our people, and we need to do it in ways that can go into communities that, like 2 weeks ago, there was a big march out there. I work in communities, and I've worked for years in communities, and I've seen people going into that march that won't march for the housing, that won't march for the other thing. So when you're doing all of this stuff, you need to go into a language of our people in the context of how
Thanks, Rita. Very happy to let Rita Fagan have the last word. Just to say, if you haven't signed up already, please do. Please take a bundle of leaflets and stay in touch with us and get the word out there about the 14th of June. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much to Lisa O'Neill for being patiently here. Very tired, I imagine, after coming back from tour. And we're very happy to have Lisa O'Neill with us this evening. If you haven't heard of Lisa O'Neill, she's one of Ireland's best songwriters and singers, and she had if anybody else was there, it was certainly one of the highlights of my year, her sold out Symphony for the Moon that was in the National Concert Hall. And I know she has I think 3 gigs coming up in the Pavilion Theatre in Dún Laoghaire, and lots of beautiful albums to buy and listen to if you aren't already familiar with her music. So to end our excellent, I think, event today, give a warm welcome to Lisa O'Neill.
Be here. I'm learning a lot. So just so you know, I'm going to sing 4 songs. I think they're all relative. I've thought a lot about them. So yeah, please listen in on the lyrics. Actually, I decided at the last minute on this one after something Mary Lynn said. and all these great women speaking here today. I wrote a song about Mary Harris, a Cork woman who became known as Mother Jones. One of the great activists and union organisers in history. She had a great way with words and spoke in layman's terms, which is so important to be inclusive of everybody. And she was up in court in 1904, and the judge said, "This is the most dangerous woman in America." And she was the most dangerous woman in America because she was afraid to speak up, and she didn't let herself be censored. She was very encouraging of the people, teach them how to protest, show them how to protest, and they protest long after she'd gone, you know. This is called Pray for the Dead and Fight Like Hell for the Living. Can I hear my guitar, please? It's my fault. I made a mistake. Take two. Mary lost her home. Mary kept her mind. Mary lost her little lambs. The world's not always kind. She survived the yellow fever. She watched Chicago burn. She fled the Irish famine and told it like it was. And then Mary joined the Union because Mary had a choice to fight for the lives of children who were dying down the mines. Have you heard of Mary Harris? Have you heard of Mother Jones? The most dangerous woman in America by the 19th century turn. You know, Mary was an angel. You know, Mary was Cork born. She had a way with people. She had a way with words. Mother Jones said, "Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living." And whatever the fight, don't be ladylike. Fight like hell for the living. Mary lost her home. Mary kept her mind. Mary lost her little lambs. The world's not always in 1960. This is called a circular song. The idea of the circular song is that when we come round to the end, we've gone full circle, and it's sort of, there's a layer comes off each time, and we go deeper. It makes a little more sense. This is an anti-war song, but it was such a pretty little song over the years by Peter, Paul and Mary that the message nearly gets lost. I'm going to sing it for you now. This is Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls have picked them, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young girls gone? Gone for husbands, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the husbands gone? Long time passing. Where have all the husbands gone? Long time ago. Where have all the husbands gone? Gone for soldiers, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone for graveyards, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to flower, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls have picked them, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn? There's a lot of anti-war songs out there, and they've been written for a long time, and they're still relevant. This is The Sun Is Burning, written by Ian Campbell, and it's nuclear weapons. The sun is burning in the are holding hands and waiting for the dawn. And the sun is in the west. Now the sun is sinking low. Children playing, know it's time to go. High above a spot appears, a little blossom blooms and then draws near. And the sun is sinking low. Now the sun has come to earth, clouded in a mushroom cloud of death. Death comes in a blinding flash of hellish heat and leaves a smear of ash. And the sun has come to earth. Now the sun has disappeared. All is darkness, anger, pain and fear. Twisted, sightless wrecks of men go groping on their knees and cry in pain. And the sun has disappeared. We'll do all we can moving forward. And this is an original song I wrote. I've been kind of slowly writing it over a few years now. And it's called To Be Wild Like the Roses. And the first verse is dedicated to Finbar Cafferty, who from Achill Island, who died over in the Ukraine in recent years. It's an angry little song, and I'm half afraid to sing it in America, but I give it a go. I've lately been thinking of an old friend who I haven't seen in a while. Last night I dreamed that the same friend passed without saying goodbye. Oh, to be wild like the roses, oh, to be red with delight. My blood is red out of fury, the windows in blood is far right. Some terrors are born out of nature, some terrors are born overnight. Some terrors are born out of leaders with their eye on a different prize. The thing is, some leaders are players. Players sometimes can be clowns, and clowns then sometimes can be dangerous. And they're there and yet they can't be found. The Big Mac, the big man, the big bomb, the power of puppets and lies, the power of fear in the people. When all hope falls to the wayside, some terrors are born out of
windows in below this bar.